say you're in Paris and you want to go to Spain. I got a hint.
Right.
I got a hint for you. Don't go east.
Don't.
Right?
Okay.
Because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
you're not going to end up in Spain.
It's a long way.
You're going to end up somewhere completely different. And you may not even realize that you're not in Spain. You may just get there and be like, you may be in Siberia and be like, man, I didn't know it was this cold in Spain, right?
Right.
And I am joking a little bit here, but this happens all the time in life because people will be thinking, oh, I want to go to a Shangri-La, right? Or an El Dorado or some heavenly space, right?
Yeah.
And without even realizing it, they end up completely different. They go the opposite direction. They end up in hell. And they're like, this doesn't seem like the El Dorado of my, what I was thinking about, but at least it's not as cold as Spain, right? I mean, it gets completely twisted, right? So I think it's really important in ninjutsu, on your journey of ninjutsu, is to understand where you're starting, or what the starting point of every good ninja should be. Or what is, in essence, I'm saying, what is the Kanjin Ganame for a ninja? Because if your Kanjin Ganame is correct, it doesn't matter what direction you go. You get to where you're going. Right? I'm talking about not a physical location, right? I'm talking about where your actions and thoughts spring from.
Yeah.
And this is just as important as any type of physical teaching that Hatsumi Sensei passed on to us. The one reason I stayed with Sensei is because there was such a balance between the two. And he was always emphasizing this type of refinement, like personal refinement. Some would like to say spiritual refinement, and I think that's great too, but in that word spiritual can get a little funky with some people, right? But this kind of spiritual refinement. I studied with Sensei for 27 years, and he always emphasized these types of teachings along with the taijutsu. To the same degree of the taijutsu, actually. Maybe a little more. So I would wonder, is it just me? Has he been doing this for a while? So I would look back and I would go and I would read other articles that he wrote back in the 60s, or I'd go back and look at videos of him, what he was talking about on TV back in the day. He always was mentioning this. Always saying it was important. Just like Shizen no Kamae is very important. It's like the most natural thing there is, right?
Right.
This kokoro gamae is very important. Or heart stance, heart kamae. And this heart kamae, I think you could probably say, would be the Kanjin Ganame for the ninja. This Kanjin Ganame means, if you look it up in the dictionary, you can say that it means that which is crucial. That which is the most essential. Like I just said, if you have like Shizen no Kamae in the physical world, then you might have some physical Kanjin Ganames or Kanames for different techniques, right? For different kata, right? You may have the Kanjin Ganame or the Kaname for this technique, maybe that you thrusting up from underneath, the opponent, using your legs. Another one might be the way you move off to this angle and strike from a hidden position, right? One may be the way you sink down instead, right? So when Sensei was teaching Mutodori, towards the end of his career, he was teaching things about like making pivot points or shiten with your fingers, support points. That's a kaname. Taking them away, creating a vacuum, creating them space, that's a kaname, like in the physical realm of technique. But if we're talking about where a ninja should start every breath, you have to go for that kokoro gamae and go back to that. Sensei would say that the Kanjin Ganame for a ninja must be justice. Now, I don't like that word justice too much. I'm not disagreeing with Sensei, but I'm just saying in English, it tends to be a word that is thrown around and used to justify people's actions, right? And you can warp it any way you want, right? People can justify just about any kind of action they do and call it justice, right? Nobody wants to be the villain, right? But we all know people do horrible things, in warfare where there's people strapping bombs to children and women, making them kill, countries using patriotism as a way to control their people and send them off to war. We have lots of things that happen in war that's just terrible. And not just war. I mean, this happens in everyday life as well. I mean, we see supposed lovers, abusing each other, beating each other physically, mentally, verbally.
Yeah.
We have spouses killing one another. We have brothers killing sisters, sisters killing brothers, parents killing children, children killing parents, right?
Yeah.
We have all these things, and that's why it's so important to understand this kaname of the ninja, what it should be. And Sensei says justice. Now, I like to use the word magokoro because I feel that's a little less malleable. It's a little less able to be controlled for your narrative. Magokoro is the pure heart, right? And if you're working from a space of a pure heart, everything you do is for the benefit of humanity. Right? Now, I want to show you something here real quick. Sensei would often talk about the fan, the Japanese fan here. I mean, we have these in the Western culture as well, right? These kind of fans, yeah. Well, this is called a sense in Japan. Hey, Sean, I heard you ain't got no sense. Sorry. I had to say it. I had to say that. But
so true, all right?
If we look at the sense here, the fan, we see that it has this kind of linchpin here.
Yeah.
And that's really the most essential thing about this fan, right? It could be considered the Kanjin Ganame of this fan. Now, the Kanjin Ganame can also be written as Shin Shin Shingan, the heart and eyes of the divine, right? So just keep that in mind. That may come up later. So this Kanjin Ganame here, if it wasn't here, the fan would not be useful, right? It would just fall apart. Wouldn't be a fan. You couldn't do this with it, right? So what Sensei says is this fan, this Kanjin Ganame, this in a ninja, the linchpin of a ninja should be justice, magokoro, the pure heart. Because from here, if you're working with a pure heart, whatever happens, whatever comes off this fan now, when you shake it, this beautiful bufu, it's going to be that. It's going to be a beautiful bufu, a fragrant bufu, a sweet breeze, right? For the benefit of everybody. Of course, it can be devastating as well, but it will have that sense to it. This reminds me of when the young ladies in Japan here, when we have like a fireworks festival in the summertime and they're wearing their summer light kimonos, they carry a lot of these fans with them. And they often spray some perfume on them. So when you're walking around the summertime and you walk by some ladies in kimonos and they're fanning themselves, you get this nice, fragrant, beautiful smell. And it's a really good way to just kind of relax and calm down, right? And that's what this is good for, right? To cool you down, right? When you're all hot and bothered. I'm not talking about temperature hot here, right? I mean, you get my drift? I'm talking about when you're hot, with your desires, with your greeds, with your passions, right? So, this bufu can cool you down. And I think being around Sensei and his bufu was able to cool me down and bring me from this place where I didn't know I was, which is what I was talking about with the first stories, to knowing a bit where I should be. Sensei said this in one of his books. He said, before I met Takamatsu Sensei, I was strolling down the 7 paths of hell, having a good time, you know. Then he met Takamatsu Sensei and everything changed. Same with me. You know, I was strolling down what I thought was a good, fun path. But it was just it was miserable, but I thought, hey, this is good, right? You know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And strolling down the 7 paths of hell, you know, with me, myself, and I, we were getting in a lot of trouble. So I feel that same way about Sensei, is that until I met him, I didn't even know where I was. I thought I was in paradise. I realized, oh my God, I'm just creating a wake of destruction as I move through the world. That's a big thing to realize.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to come to grips with.
Right.
That you didn't even know that you were creating this path of destruction in the world. Right? And that's why I think Sensei would always stress this kind of refinement and this kokoro gamai and the Kanjin Ganame of the ninja, which must be the pure heart. Because then whatever you're doing here is going to be what you should be doing. In other words, you're going to be in tune with nature. Yeah, this is quite an important topic.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch briefly here on maybe why this sense was also used by Sensei to describe this. Because the sense also has another meaning. It's called a sui hirogari, which means that's kind of like stretching out in all directions infinitely. You see from this one point here, I'm going to cover my face, it's stretching out in all directions infinitely. So this is a very auspicious symbol here, right? You'll often see it at weddings and things like this, where it's used to represent prosperity and happiness and all things good, kind of stemming from this one point and moving out in all directions in the world. So it's called a sui hirogari, this form here. Now I want you to take a quick look at it, because I'm going to flip it on its upside down, right? Boom. Now if you do this, it looks like Mount Fuji, right? Now Mount Fuji is also considered this form of sui hirogari, right? From one point, it spreads out in infinite directions. Not just these 2 directions of the fan either, but like infinite directions. So that's more the idea of this sui hirogari, that from this one point, infinite directions spreading out in eternity. It's moving, right? You can take this further and say from this one point, like the center of a molecule maybe, radiating in all directions, simultaneous, infinitely. So this is very auspicious, and it's very used for these very celebratory events, right? Also, the actual number 8, if you turn it on its side, it means infinity, right? It's like mugen in Japanese, right? Or infinite, right? So if you look at this fan here, you see the 2 main branches here, I guess that's what they call them, the 2 main sticks here.
Yeah.
They form the kanji for the number 8. The number 8 in kanji looks like this, like 2 sticks like this,
Yeah.
right? And that's the sui hirogari form, right? Infinite. So this number 8 has been considered a very auspicious number here in Japan since, you know, a very, very long time. You know, so you might have heard the expression Yao Yorozu no Kami in Japan. That means like Japan is the country of, like, you know, infinite amount of gods.
Right, right.
In Ya is 8, so 810,000. It basically means, you know, infinite. So this number 8 is very auspicious here, even going back into the old times of Japan, ancient times, right? Yao Yorozu no Kami. So Japan is this country that has, you know, infinite amount of gods, because they see, again, going back to Shin Shin Shingan now, the eyes and heart of the divine, they can see the divine in all aspects of manifestation. Wow, I'm getting into another topic for another video. I'm going to stop there.
We're getting riled up.
Well, here's another story now, just to kind of show you how much Sensei was always thinking about these types of teachings. One day in the dojo, I was there, and a student, I think it was Willie from Argentina, brought him a belt as a gift, or some of his students brought him a belt. And it was from an indigenous people. I think it was from Patagonia or somewhere. But an indigenous people had stitched this belt and stitched a nice pretty pattern on the belt. And they gave it to Sensei, and Sensei takes it, and he's like, oh, thank you very much for this belt. It's a very beautiful belt. And he's looking at it for a minute or two, and he looks up and he says, you know, this is a map to the heart. You know? And I was stunned. I was like, what? A map to the heart, you know? Because this was a long time ago. I didn't know what he was talking about. But you know, humans have been leaving these hints, these maps, like hidden treasure maps, all over the place since the time of humanity's birth, right? We've been leaving markers and messages for each other, right? On cave walls, later in paintings, in mandalas, in sculptures, in memes nowadays, right? You know, you can find some good stuff in some memes nowadays, right? And so I thought it was a very interesting thing when Sensei said, oh, this is a map to the heart. Take a look at it again. So you look at it now with new eyes, don't you? Now, I don't know if it really was a map to the heart, but I'm gonna trust him on that and believe it was. Sorry, that was my phone. So that's kind of what I want to leave it with today. I hope that everyone's going to enjoy this conversation about the Kanjin Ganame of a ninja. I think it's super important. So if you're thinking about the Kanjin Ganame, remember it can be written, of course, as Shin Shin Shingan, the eyes in the heart of the divine. I can talk about that some other time. But remember the fan here, the linchpin of a ninja, should be Magokoro, or justice. From there, you take your first step on your journey of 1,000 steps without leaving disaster in your wake. Before I leave today, I just want to take a moment to thank some of our supporters who have given us some nice contributions this last month. I want to thank Joshua B., Robert E., Martin R., Don A., Dirk B., George S., Paul H., and Sammy V. So thank you very much for your contributions. Without you guys, we couldn't keep this Kasumian video service going. I really appreciate all your support. And if you haven't made a contribution and you'd like to make a contribution, there'll be a note in the show notes below where you can find a PayPal donation site. And on your way out, if you liked the video, if you got something from it, please give us a thumbs up. That really helps the YouTube algorithm. Also, turn on notifications if you want, subscribe to the channel if you feel like it, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.